Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Today I got a little victim in here. Fella brought it in. It's a 30 horsepower Johnson, probably a mid to late 80s model. He just wants it tuned up and everything before he starts using it for the season here. And one of the concerns he had was that there was some oil coming out of the lower unit. So I asked him what color the oil was, and I asked him, was it tea colored, or was it like coffee with cream in it colored, or was it dark jet black? And he said it was real black. Normally when you see that, that's perfectly normal in a two-stroke engine if it's dark jet black. Especially a two-stroke engine that gets used seldom. Up here where we're at, we have a short boating season, so the engines sit all winter long and then mostly through the spring as well. And then when you start them up and run them that first couple of times, all that yucky carbon that burns with the oil and the gas that's in the exhaust leg, it'll get all emulsified from the water churning in there and everything. And for the first few times, you may have some of that real dark black oil coming out of the drain holes and stuff. But simple test to find out what we got going on if there is a problem. And I'll show you the tool I use for that and how it's done. It's a simple homemade pressure gauge that you can buy the stuff to make it at the hardware store. So here's what we got going. Here's the engine. I got it up on my lift. It's a 30 Johnson, mid-80s. And there's the tool I use to do the test. And if I can get you to where it'll stay focused. Okay. Let's try that. There it is. And what I do is, hopefully you can see it. The first number there is 10, so it's 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way around to 100 psi. And so I'm just going to put about 10 pounds of pressure. It's just a Schrader valve, just like you would have in a car tire, a tire stem, Schrader valve. Then I take my air hose, my regular compressor air hose, and I'll put a few pounds of air in there. Not a lot. Okay, so there's about 10 pounds in there. And you can see it's staying pretty steady. There's the 10 mark. It's actually got about 11 or so, maybe 12 in there. And you don't want to go much higher than that. Now, if that dropped down real quick, what you do then is you take a spray bottle with soap in it and you start squirting. You squirt, well, I say you start squirting, but there you go. You squirt around that to make sure you ain't got no bubbles coming out of the air and leaking. You squirt around there, make sure that ain't leaking. You squirt around your propeller in your hub and you coat it with soapy water. And if there's a leak, bubbles will start blowing. But this guy's staying pretty much rock solid right there at 11, 12 pounds or so. And then to bleed off the pressure, you can just take the thing off or push the Schrader. There you go. So now we're back down to 0. I bled it off through the Schrader valve. All right, so that's all there is to it. So I left this one set a while earlier and it stayed right there. So I'm comfortable that this engine, the lower unit, is not leaking, and what he saw was just the emulsified black yucky exhaust. And I'll show you the rest of this little tool here that you can make. It's just a couple hose clamps and real simple fittings. Alright. So there's the regular compression type washer that goes in it. That goes in a normal fill or drain screw. Then it's got a big rubber O-ring. There's that aluminum bolt that I drilled lengthwise through. And I put it into this bolt here, and then I put lead solder, melted lead solder around it, so it's one unit. And that's really all there is to that part. And so that piece is about yo long. And I put the lead solder so it kind of stays there in the center. Hose clamp, piece of hose. 3-way fitting that you can get at the hardware store. Nothing special, just a brass fitting. I think I took this one off an old air compressor. Another piece of hose, a cut-off tire valve stem in there with another hose clamp, and a gauge. And the gauge can be pretty much anything as long as it reads 10, 20 pounds or so. That's all there is to really checking for a leak in a lower unit. And I've heard some say that it needs to stay like overnight and stuff like that. That's fine, you can do that, but I don't think you really need to. Just basically put it in there, and if you've got a leak, after 20, 30 minutes or so, if that needle hasn't moved, you don't have a leak. If it's leaking, it's going to drop down within a few minutes, and most of the time it's instant. Most of the time you'll put the air in it and you'll hear it coming out around the prop seal or something like that. They do, you can pick up monofilament fishing line and stuff like that, and they leak them seals up, and they leak, and they're not a real big deal to change anyway. But and so sometimes your shift, where the shift rod goes up and down, or where the drive shaft comes through, those seals can leak. But in this case, he's not leaking. It's good to go. So I'm going to finish the fax check. I'll film some of that when I get it set up to do the rest of it, and I'll come back and we'll film that. All right, we're continuing on with a fax check here. I've got my spark spider hooked up there, and I got a pressure compression gauge in the top cylinder, number 1 cylinder. So I'll pull this over, and this will give us a check for spark and compression on the top cylinder. Hopefully you can see that. Got good hot poppy spark on both cylinders, and the compression reading, get over here where I can show it. Hopefully you can see at top cylinders 120. So that's pretty good. Now we'll put it on the bottom cylinder and get a reading on that. Alright. Okay. I'll put that back here where hopefully we can. It should be able to work just like that too. I don't know if that'll stay. That will. Okay, you can watch the spark tester there, and okay, and you're looking at about 122 on the bottom cylinder, so that's just fine. So at this point, now we know we got good spark, we know we got good compression. Something I did find a little interesting here was when I took out his spark plugs, they look brand new. But the gap looks mighty small to me, so I'm going to check it with a little gap checker. It's all right. It's about 30, so yeah, so that's all right. These are not the plugs I would recommend using in this engine. This one, see, that one does, it gaps down at less than 30, probably about 25, so I'm going to open that one up just a tad. All right, so that's better. These are NGKs. I don't know if he crossed them. I'd have to look at my book, but I'm pretty sure this engine calls for Champion QL QL 744 or something like that. What's the number? I should know that by heart. L7 QL L7 or L7. This is the plug I do believe should go in there. Is a QL77 JC4, or you could use an L77 JC4. So, if this thing don't start right up, I'm gonna cross-check them and make sure they're the right ones. So, good spark, good compression. His pull start is a little sticky. I'll probably have to clean that up. So the next step is our fuel. So we'll hook a fuel line up. I'll get it in the tank, and we'll see if she'll start up. When I get set up, we'll come back. So, that'll be a wrap up pretty much of this video. The engine started about like on the second pull. And I told the owner after I ran it, put it in gear and everything, the things that I found wrong with it. Both of the transom clamp handles, one's frozen, one's broken. I told him I would replace those. I don't know if you noticed when I pull started it, the recoil just crawls back in. The cord just goes in real slow. So I told him that recoil needs to come off and be taken apart, cleaned up, all the salt, crud, and everything moved out of there. A little fresh light grease in there, and make it like it's supposed to function. What else? The lower unit oil, when I was doing the pressure test on the lower unit, I noticed that the oil smelled really bad, didn't look too good, so I said I recommend a lower unit oil change with new seals on both drain screws. And so I told him about the spark plugs. I said, I do believe that it calls for QL77 JC4s, and he said, put them in. He said the people up at the auto parts store told him those would work, and they do. So I said, use those as your backup, put the ones that the manufacturer, OEM people who built your motor recommend to put in there. So those are the things that I'm going to do to it. I called him, and he gave me the authorization to go ahead and get those things done, and I'll get that done, and we'll square this thing away, clean up the cylinder block, desalt it, and lube all the points there. But other than that, the engine's just needs a little TLC, and the owner was willing to spend the money and get it taken care of, so we'll get it squared away. And thanks for watching.